Detroit Beard Collective is a proud sponsor of Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by slackjawpunks.com.
Guys, tired of trying to make that burly beard of yours look and smell good? Then check this out. Straight out of the Motor City, where they know a thing or two about being tough, comes Detroit Beard Collective, specializing in making that facial hair look good with products like beard butter, beard oils and soaps, specialty combs, and so much more. Come check out the line today at DetroitBeardCollective.com. DBC takes pride in using Detroit and Michigan-based companies and ingredients in all aspects of their product development and manufacturing as they continue to build Detroit's premier grooming company. Even burly dudes like to look and smell good, and DBC will make that happen. Do yourself and your badass beard a favor and log on to DetroitBeardCollective.com and check out all the amazing products they offer. And when you're ready to check out, use promo code SJPDBC to receive 10% off. Detroit Beard Collective, cleaning this world up one beard at a time.
Welcome inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. It is Tim Ellis and Brad Blair with you. As first and foremost, we want to wish everyone a very happy holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, everything that comes with this time of year.
Amen, and God bless us, everyone.
That's right. God bless us, everyone. Actually, this is a very special time for Brad and I inside the Creaking Door, as this is our anniversary time.
It is.
It was on December 23rd, 2014.
So we've 5 years.
Yep. Wow. When we launched our first show ever, and of course, very fitting that it was on Krampus, which we just bypassed the night of Krampus not too long ago.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks back, and now onwards and into the full regime of the holiday season, if you will.
Yeah, unbelievable to think that it is here already. We are definitely here in northern Michigan where we live. In for a white Christmas.
Yeah, that's not usually in doubt around here, but man, I am just not ready though.
American Thanksgiving was so late this year on the calendar that I think it has thrown everyone off.
Yeah,
everyone.
We've got a week until Christmas as we sit here recording, and I have not yet started my Christmas shopping. How about you?
Well, a little bit. A little bit, but I'm not done by any means. I mean, it's a good thing Santa Claus is out there because he'll help us where we fall short.
I have one thing ordered from an online auction for my son, and that's about it. So
you better get on that, Dad. Otherwise, you're going to have a very surprised son.
Plenty of
Christmas
time.
Morning.
Well, what I've always found, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you wait until the 24th, you're not as picky when you hit the stores.
That's very true.
You get in there, get that stuff done, and back home and wrapped, and you're good to go.
So true. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it.
And it's the thought that counts.
Yeah, and as he's opening up some socks and a notepad.
Tell a 13-year-old that.
Yeah, that's right. He'll get it maybe about 20 years later, but not at that point. But as we're getting ready to wrap up 2019, too, it's interesting to look back that another year and a whole decade is closing on us. And somehow you and I, we're not aging. I don't know how that happens.
It's got to be good, clean living. That's all I can attribute it to.
Staying out of the bars and all that stuff, yeah. No.
Have not been in one since, well, not today yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's early, though.
So it is.
It's early. Actually, we should have had this show catered, considering it is our anniversary show. 5 years, man.
Man.
5 years.
Time flies.
It does when you're having fun.
Yeah.
I guess. No, we are having an absolute blast, and that is why we love doing this show, Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by slackjawpunks.com, which is our main home where you can find all of our shows dating right back to the very first one we did 5 years ago. You can find us on Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, and now it is official. We are officially on Spotify. So you can find us there. So
we're everywhere.
We can't hide. Plus, creakingdoorparanormal.com, Facebook, Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, and Twitter. We do that tweeting thing as well. So we're all over the place. You can find us and make your 2020 New Year's resolution to become big fanatic fans of Creaking Door. All right, and
I think you and I are the only two of those out there.
So. I think so, but that's
join
all
the
right.
party.
That's right. We got plenty of room here inside. But all right, let's get into it, shall we? As we are doing our holiday edition and year-end edition of Creaking Door, it's time to jump into Paranews. Here is where we like to dig up some fun, interesting, weird kind of news that we like to share. And considering it's year-end, Brad, I think I'll jump in with this one here. We've talked about this through the year of 2019 in some of our shows, how it really seems like the stories of UFO sightings are really amping up.
It has. It's been a really big year between the government's disclosure of, well, I guess the Navy's disclosure, so the government's, of UFO sightings in the past and things they've recorded. It just seems like it's in the mainstream news media more and more often.
For sure. It's so much so that the National UFO Reporting Center has announced that 2019 is a record-breaking year for UFO sightings and reports, and coming from some very credible people as well, as another thing that they said. So as you had just noticed or mentioned, in May, the Pentagon admitted to investigating UFOs soon after the Navy pilots claimed to not only have seen but recorded UFOs during the training exercise in 2004 and 2015. And then in November, another report in Popular Mechanics confirmed that after the 2004 incident, two unknown individuals took the data tapes away and wiped the Navy hard drive. Meanwhile, just around the time the Popular Mechanics report was released, unidentified flying objects were captured on video off North Carolina's Outer Banks, and the Army announced a partnership with, this sounds a little weird, but Blink-182 frontman Tom DeLonge's to the Stars Academy to research alien technology. But while astronomers say humans finding aliens may take a long time, 2019 was a record-breaking year for possible UFOs visiting Earth. Now, according to the National UFO Reporting Center, which is out of Ohio, Gallipolis, Ohio, a husband and former law enforcement and wife scientist were sitting outside their recreational vehicle at a public campsite who witnessed a very bright light approach their campsite from the south in an erratic manner, appearing to slow or stop on several occasions as it drew near. It got within 50 yards, they estimated, of their campsite, at which time, out of the sense of alarm, the husband reached for his .45, attaboy, his sidearm, but he felt unable to use his arm or even lift the firearm. The object, estimated by the witnesses to have been approximately 20 feet in diameter, hovered nearby for approximately 8 seconds and then suddenly accelerated toward the west and disappeared very quickly. And this is what the reporting center, the National UFO Reporting Center, is saying. These are the type of accounts that they just saw flood in this year for 2019.
Yeah, it just, as I said, it's hit more and more of the mainstream media. It's not just found in these absurd online, posts that somebody had been abducted by their grandmother's, dog who was dressed as an alien. Right. The kind of thing that you find in the tabloid media. But no, I've seen more and more of this. So.
And they also, too, the National Reporting Center also released in 2019 a map of the U.S. and where the most sightings have come from. Most of them are northern climates. The top 5 are Washington State. Washington gets it all, man. They get UFOs and Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's kind of the Bigfoot mecca of the U.S.
Washington, Montana, Vermont, Alaska, and Maine are the top 5, and the least are Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. Michigan, as always, we just kind of fit right in the middle of everything. We're right there.
I wonder if that has anything to do with population, though.
Could
population centers and where they more people are there to see these things.
Very possible, if you kind of break those types of states down, for sure. But so there you go. Interesting, as we're wrapping up 2019, and it was a record-breaking record-breaking year for UFO sightings.
Something else that's happened in 2019 along the para-entertainment fields, we've seen really kind of a rebirth or relaunch, if you will, of the whole paranormal reality genre.
Big time.
You know, the guys from Hawes and Steve Gonzalez, Dave Tango have their new show going now. And then you've got the Kindred Spirits group with Amy and Adam.
Yep.
You've got all of these, the relaunch of Ghost Hunters on A&E. And
got that brand new Holzer Files.
the new Holzer Files. One name that hasn't popped up, though, Ryan Buell from Paranormal State.
Yeah, you're right.
It was kind of a train wreck last we checked in with Ryan.
Yeah, I know he was, last I'd seen, he was doing a lot of Facebook Live stuff where he was trying to clean himself up, but I haven't heard anything in a while.
Yeah, well, there's some hints being dropped now that he may have a new show in the works.
Oh, boy.
Believe it or not. The star of the popular A&E show recently marked Paranormal State's 12th year debut anniversary, talking with Showbiz Cheat Sheet website here. Buell, who shared a few images of the cast and crew from when Paranormal State debuted in 2007 online, he reminisced about how the show was ahead of its time, but then dropped a hint that perhaps more's to come. 12 years ago today, Paranormal State first premiered to audiences across the country. Over a decade later, it's still airing on TV. It was so much fun to invite audiences into the PRS investigations, he shared on Instagram. Thanks to all who contributed to this series, which was ahead of its time and still stands the test of time with audiences. And there will be more to come. Stay tuned. And a little winky face there. Viewers have been hoping more was to come for some time. Buell was riding the fame wave when he fell into the grips of addiction. He angered fans by canceling events without refunds. Plus, he lied about the seriousness of his addiction. But now that he is in recovery, he's returned to ghost hunting. So he's posted a call for cases. Buell's is quoted as saying, PRS is now accepting case submissions from those who are experiencing intense or life-threatening hauntings, he shared. We're also looking for individuals/families who are willing to allow a film crew to document the investigation. If you're experiencing a haunting and are looking for help and are willing to be filmed,
Or 15 minutes of fame.
Amen. Please feel free to send us a case request submission by clicking on the link that he had posted. Buell also spent time with the new Paranormal Research Society team, which he started 18 years ago at Penn State. He shared some recent photos in his visit with the team. 18 years ago, I started a group called the Paranormal Research Society at Penn State. 18 years later, it's still active. It was so awesome to sit down and talk with them, laugh about some of the similar struggles, and hear about what they're doing right now. So cool to have this going on. So I don't know. Is there room for redemption, for one thing?
Well, that's the main thing.
This is a guy that really fell off the wagon hard.
Oh, man.
And I feel for him. I know he was dealing with drug addiction. He's been fighting that. But he stole that car. Well, he rented a car and didn't return it.
Yep.
However you want to classify that. And then he had a couple domestic assault charges against him.
And money owed to so many people.
He filled up these venues, charged however much, and then did not return the monies after he canceled.
Yeah.
Now, I've spoken with a friend who's a cast member on a popular paranormal reality show. And I brought this up, and he did confirm that there is a mainstream production company that is in talks with Ryan.
Yeah.
So whether or not this is a reboot of Paranormal State, or if this is something new they're looking at doing, and whether it even gets off the floor and gets moving on this, I would be very leery with his past.
I'd be leery with him, but Hollywood, they could care less. They'll use him to get a quick buck. And use his name to try to get some quick ratings and then see where it goes from there. But because of the onslaught of new shows we've seen and a lot of it being, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but recycled, bringing back names that have been on TV already, it just makes sense that they would give him a shot.
Yeah, but that was a big A&E show. Now, A&E tried to reboot Ghost Hunters with Grant Wilson and a whole new cast, and let's face it, the ratings are not good.
No, not at all.
Things do not look positive for that to continue going. I know they've already recorded enough to get into a second season, I've been told. But as far as people did not embrace that show, the way they have Ghost Nation or Kindred Spirits,
Right.
where the other alumni from the Ghost Hunters show have dropped at.
Yeah, personally, I didn't care for it. I didn't like the production quality of it. I just didn't. I didn't feel. And maybe this is me holding on to the original Ghost Hunters and the nostalgia because that was so iconic. I didn't like the chemistry between the new team either.
You know, that's the thing. It's so obvious that this team was thrown together for a television show. Where you go back to the original TAPS team from 2003, 4, whenever that debuted.
Right.
They'd been working together already. There was, like you said, there was chemistry with the team. It was fun to watch. It was fun to watch them interact.
Good or bad, Brian Harnwell. I mean, let's be honest. That was
it was entertaining.
Comedic gold.
It was entertaining. The new group. I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving them a fair shake.
Could be.
I'll be the first to say, but it just they don't have the chemistry there.
Yeah,
and I'll leave it at that.
Yep, same here. And
so would Ryan Buell be able to come in with a new team and pull off what Grant hasn't?
Yeah, but here's the difference between the people that they have brought back that have been on TV before and Ryan Buell. None of them have the track record in the past history of burning bridges like Buell does. So we'll see what happens there. All right, here's my second story for Para News. I went UFO. Now I'm going to jump over to Bigfoot, a Russian Bigfoot at that, who apparently doesn't like cars. It's like a dog. He chases them. A video has gone viral. Now, apparently, this was recorded back in 2016, first appeared online back in the summer of that year, but seems to have managed to evade the attention of media until now. The footage, which can be viewed further down on this page that I'm on, and you can find it out there easily, is somewhat, of course, difficult to make out due to the shakiness and the poor resolution and the usual stuff.
But that's a normal Bigfoot filming.
That's exactly it, yes. Now, the shakiness does, you can tell it's someone holding a cell phone in a car that's going down the road, but it does appear to be this very bulky humanoid creature attempting to catch up to the vehicle, and the vehicle seems to, I can't tell. The article says they're struggling to escape from the scene. To me, the video seemed more like they kept stopping.
If I'm safe in a car, or presumably safe, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop and film. I'll be honest. If the car gets beat to hell a little bit, so be it.
That's right.
That's what insurance is for.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, if you're able to stop and actually record decent footage of a Squatch.
Now, if your car gets pummeled by a Squatch, does that go under the act of God part of your insurance coverage?
I would have to call my agent on that.
That's right. I'm not sure where that one gets covered under. But it's a pretty interesting video, to say the least. You see this thing. It's often kind of off the side of the road, and it's in this taller grass, and it ducks down sometimes, and then it pops up, and it starts chasing. It's interesting.
Throw it up on the Facebook page when we get down here. I have not seen this yet. Now,
in a recent report for Russian media, Igor Berstesev of the Moscow office of the International Center for Homology seemed to be quite convinced by the video. He says, this, I think, is the second such case in the world. So convincing, because it is clear that the creature is running. Moreover, when we studied the freeze frames on it, I saw a bulge there at one of the turns. So, this is a woman's chest. Do you understand, he says.
Well.
This is a female. Yes, we get it, what you're saying, Igor. That it has, it's
got boobies.
Yes, it's got breasts. But anyways, it's very interesting. The creature is very thick. I mean, it's kind of creepy at the same time. So I'll make sure we post that up.
Post that up. I want to see that yet. Mm-hmm. So out with the old, in with the new.
Yes.
New Year's coming in. Captain Kirk out with another wife.
Yeah.
William Shatner, once again, filing for divorce. This wife he's been with for 18 years, Elizabeth Shatner.
Wow.
This is coming from TMZ. Bill, who they assume is worth around $100 million. Seems like kind of a ballpark figure, but we'll go with that.
Give or take half.
He and Elizabeth have a prenup signed, so it should be a quick divorce. TMZ reports the Star Trek actor just filed for divorce against his wife, Elizabeth, who he got hitched with back in 2001. Sources familiar with the matter tell us Bill and Liz's split should move along relatively smooth, as we're told the couple has a prenup. Our sources say the Shatners are negotiating the financial terms, but one thing won't be an issue: spousal support. We're told, per the terms of the prenup, neither party will receive any support from the other. Now, where this kind of ties into the paranormal field and gets fun, a writer for Delisted Blog says, now, this is wild speculation on my part, but I did notice Bill has been engaging in a flirty back-and-forth Twitter banner with Amy Bruni, Ghost Hunter star and co-producer and star of the paranormal investigation show Kindred Spirits. And while I'd rather just go ahead and die before Twitter flirting with someone young enough to be my grandchild, that's apparently not the case for Bill. And then they screenshot a couple of these posts where Amy put up just recently, what to do in an afternoon in Los Angeles before I catch my red-eye flight home, to which Shatner replied, change your ticket and stay. And Amy came back with, that was my original plan, but my daughter's school Christmas concert was rescheduled to 8:30 a.m. tomorrow for some strange reason. So, you and I are both personal friends with Amy.
Right.
We've worked some of her events, and she's been here at Michigan Paracon I don't know how many times. I think I'm safe in squashing this rumor.
Yeah. Other than giving us a good laugh, that's as far as I'm going to...
It's always given Amy a kick that Shatner followed her on Twitter, and I know they've had these little banners from time to time, which is just fun, innocent, flirtatious behavior. I don't believe that Amy has ever actually met Shatner face to face, if I'm not mistaken.
You would think if they had, she would have had that all over, because she was so excited when he first started following her on Twitter, kind of fanboying a little bit. I think,
absolutely, as I would as well.
For sure. I think we would have seen pictures if she ever met him.
Absolutely.
Type thing. So.
Absolutely.
It was worth a good laugh nonetheless.
It was entertaining, and actually I found that post was Amy had put that up on her personal site.
Yeah, she found it quite humorous.
So she's getting a kick out of it as well.
Out with the old, in with the new, but in that case for Amy it would be in with the old. Exactly. All right, there we go. Wrap it up. Paranews on this edition, this holiday edition of Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. And as always, when we do our holiday edition, we always try to find a holiday theme to tie it in. And
we're going retro this time.
Yes, we are.
We're going back into an old show and getting some new detail.
And we're very excited to revisit what would have been our first year anniversary when we first had this guest.
Was it really that long ago?
It was. She was. We were celebrating our first year. She came on December 17th, actually, the actual day of our recording today.
Wow.
2015. So Tui Snider is the author, and she talks about Santa Claus being a bad, bad boy. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a bit. Stick around. This is Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by SlackJawPunks.com.
Think of Michigan's Upper Peninsula as the scary attic sitting there above the rest of the state. I can think of no better guides to take you inside the history and lore than the guys of the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society. Those are the words from writer and lead researcher for the hit TV show Ghost Adventures, Jeff Belanger. For over 20 years, the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society has dedicated their lives to researching the paranormal. And now, some of their favorite cases are brought to life on the pages of their debut book, Supernatural Haunts. Come inside these pages with the team as they share intimately the history of each location and their experiences during their investigation. Learn their techniques and some of the most intense moments they have faced. True stories and true accounts of ghosts await you inside the pages of Supernatural Haunts by the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society. Get your autographed copy today at www.supernaturalhaunts.com. And welcome back inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. It is Tim Ellis and Brad Blair with you and celebrating our anniversary once again, Brad. It was 5 years ago that we officially launched our first ever edition of Creaking Door Paranormal Radio on December 23rd, 2014. We did a show on Krampus.
We did.
Mm-hmm. And then a year later, we celebrated our 1 year anniversary on December 17th, 2015. And it just so happens the lady we got to celebrate our first year anniversary with, we now get to celebrate our fifth anniversary with. We'd love to welcome her back in. She's an author, speaker, photographer who specializes in North Texas, travel, cemetery symbols, and haunted lore. We're so excited to welcome back in Tui Snider. Tui, welcome back inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio.
Wow, thanks for the great intro. And, since I'm here for anniversaries, I kind of feel bad. I didn't bring cookies or a cake or anything.
Bottle of wine or beer would have been great.
12-pack.
Oh, there you go. I'll bring you
Yes.
some Texas beer. I'll bring you some Lone Star beer.
Oh,
that's good stuff.
Now you're speaking our language. So,
All right.
it's been a while. 2015 since we last had a chance to sit down and talk with you. And back then, and we're going to actually talk about it more again today, but we were talking about a wonderful tie-in, kind of a dark side of Santa Claus, if you will. But how have things been since out there in Texas where everything's a little bit bigger?
Well, things are still strange here in Texas. Delightfully strange, because I do always joke that I used to write fiction, but then I moved to Texas.
Yes.
And that is holding true. The Lone Star State does not disappoint with chronic weirdness, and it's just great.
Perfect.
So, yeah. And I have a few other books, just keep cranking them out because, like I said, the Lone Star State is really delivering.
Yeah, I was going to say, we had a chance to look through your list of books since we last had you on. I believe when you were on last time, the book we were promoting and talking about was just your third, I think. And now,
yeah, I know. I was a newbie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the lynching of the Santa Claus bank robber.
Yeah, I had a big spoiler in the title.
Yeah. It did, and it really was a wonderful book. Even though it's a true story of going back to 1927, December 1927, West Texas bank robbery that went on, and
what a wild story!
It was.
I mean, even if this was fiction, it'd be a great story. But like you said, Tui, Texas is stranger than fiction. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if this were fiction, I would feel it was a little overblown. Like, I would never write a story this crazy.
Yeah.
But since it's true, I'm like, well, oh, goody, here's another tidbit, putting it in the book. I can't believe it.
It's such a wild cast of characters, and there's so much great just true crime history, I guess, behind this that you have now, I don't want to say re-released because there's a lot of new info to the book, and you've put it out as Santa Claus Bank Robbery. Now, that's the same name as another book, though, is it not?
Yes, and actually a couple of books, but one in particular, although he calls it the Santa Claus Bank Robbery, I did drop that. But I was kind of hoping, A.C. Green, who he's got a great book out. He released his book in 1972, and it's an interesting book, but a lot of people look to it as being the only source or the main hub source for information about this tale. And when I was first researching it, even some very well-meaning historians would hand me, tell me to go get that book or say, oh, you've read his book. Well, that's pretty much it. And I was taking his book as the gospel, essentially. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to do all my own research, and I kept hitting these dead ends, particularly with one particular woman and one particular family. And when I finally found out that he had used false names for her and people related to her, it just kind of broke open the tale for me, and I was able to get some juicy information on my own. So, yeah.
It's such a wild cast of characters through this book, and it takes us back, and let's go back in time. In the 1920s, you refer to this as the age of bank robberies.
I do, and to me that was a big surprise, and I have to say that's one reason I love doing research is because I go into things with my own, they say enter with your mind as a blank slate when you're doing research. I can't do that. I always have an idea. I always think I know, and it's good for me because I'm usually, I love it when I start digging in and it just proves me wrong. So this is one of those cases. I thought, when I think of bank robberies in the West, I tend to think of frontier times, Jesse James and all that. But really, the 1920s or the big golden age of, if you're a criminal, of bank robberies, the age of bank robberies, because there were several every day. Here in Texas, there were 3 to 4, at least, bank robberies every single day.
Wow. So much so to the point where, if I remember correctly from what you had shared with us before, that kind of like the governing board of banks in the area kind of got together and almost went vigilante and said, you bring us a dead bank robber and we're going to pay you some pretty good cash.
Oh, yeah, and we're talking really good cash. I mean, they had what they called a robber bounty in place for about $500 per bank robber. This is the Texas State Bankers Association. And in 1927, they got so frustrated that they actually increased this to $5,000. And
wow.
They got, the old wanted dead or alive kind of thing.
Right.
They got rid of the or alive part. And they said, they're like, we're getting serious. Maybe this will be a deterrent. We will give you $5,000 per bank robber caught in the act, but dead. So you gotta, you gotta kill him in the act, and then per, so if there's 4 people involved, you're gonna get $20,000. And to put this in perspective, people were making in the 1920s, they were making under $1,500 per year. That was their annual wage.
Wow.
So, ka-ching, $5,000 for just one dead bank robber.
Yeah.
If you could pop one bank robber off a year, you're living pretty.
Yeah, pretty much.
And since they have to be dead, they can't come back and say, I was just holding this bag you told me to hold, because that actually happened more than once, where they would tell people, hey, why don't you just go wait in front of this bank, and there was a pretty famous case, but there were several, just wait in front of this bank, and I'm going to come back, I've got some work for you to do.
Yep.
And instead they just report those people as bank robbers, and so people
Wow.
rush there and shoot them. Yeah, so, once they're dead, they really can't testify against you, and you're like, yeah, sign me up.
So the way that the central character of Santa Claus then gets involved, because that was actually, going back to your first book, The Lynching of the Santa Claus Bank Robber, there were 4 guys involved, but one of them actually dressed as Santa.
Yeah, how did this gang get together in the first place? And let's fill us in a little bit on how Santa Claus does become the central character in this crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so the guys who were involved, that we know for sure were involved, 3 of them met down in Huntsville prison in Texas, and they were all serving time for crimes. In fact, there were a couple brothers serving time down there, and they had a pretty long sentence, but at the time in Texas, we had Ma Ferguson as our governor. She was like the second female governor in the United States, and she was very well renowned for being very soft-hearted. She was pardoning people left and right. So she let these boys out, and they only served a couple months of their, decades long or however long their sentences were for robbing a different bank. So they were trying to figure out what to do with their lives, and rather than think, hey, maybe we should go on the straight and narrow, they thought one of them had lived in Cisco, Texas. His name was Marshall Ratflett, and he thought, I know the perfect bank to knock off because it has a really easy, it's right next to an alley. So we could have our little getaway car parked right in the alley. I'll walk in. Now, I will dress, he was saying, he planned to dress like Santa because everyone knew him around town. They didn't just know him, they knew his reputation, that he was a bad boy. So he said, hey, we'll do it in close to Christmas. I'll be dressed like Santa. I'll walk in, you guys wait, come in, and then we'll have someone in the getaway car, and it'll be so easy peasy. Nothing, what could possibly go wrong? And that's how that all came about.
And then from there, literally insert the, again, I almost hate to use the word comedy because lives were lost, people were shot, but the stuff that starts to ensue from that point on through the story is just something you couldn't make up.
The whole scheme kind of
I
backfired.
know.
Yeah.
I have had book reviewers tell me this over and over, like, I did not expect to be chuckling to myself, even though, okay, I get it. This is a crime. This where people are injured. But at the same time, there's this comedy of errors aspect to it that just escalates and escalates every time you turn around. And it really does start right here. Of course, when Santa is walking into a bank, what does that do? Little kids see Santa. What are they going to do when they see Santa? It's like you're a kid magnet. So he's actually pretty lucky. Only one kid came into the bank. He managed to shake off the kids. He was walking on the street, and kids were coming up to him left and right. And I do have a couple quotes from, of what they had said in the book. But yeah, so he steps into the bank, and he thought he'd gotten rid of all the little kids. But there was one little persistent girl named Frances who grabbed her mom's hand and insisted, please, we got to go talk to Santa Claus. I think she called him Old Santa Claus. So they go charging into the bank. She's fully expecting to give him her list of goodies she wants. And instead, the mom, this lady, I really admire her, Mrs. Blazing Game. She walked into the bank. She quickly saw a bunch of people standing there with their hands in the air, men brandishing guns, and she realizes it is obviously a holdup. And they tell her, "Hey, lady, stop, or I will shoot. Don't stay where you are." And I admire this. She could have frozen in fear. She had a little girl. Instead, she just charged right out the back door and into that alleyway that they were, they knew. She knew about the alleyway, too. Everybody in town knew about that alleyway. Mm-hmm. So she just ran up the alleyway. And here again, comedy of errors, because right around the corner, they're like a block and a half from the police station. So it did not take her long to just charge, adrenaline-fueled woman with her little 6-year-old to go flying around the corner and charge in and say, hey, there are men holding up the bank right now.
Yeah. And then the sheriff himself, he's this big stature of a guy. He's expected to, he's the type of guy you would expect to come in and save the day, but he doesn't even make it to the bank from what I remember. He gets shot, eventually dies from that shot, but it's the person he claims that shot him that was this mysterious figure that does that tie into your second book as well?
Oh, it sure does, yeah. So Mrs. Blazing Game goes flying into the cop shop, and she told him that she thought there were 8 people holding up the bank. Now, some people who were just hanging out in the bank right then thought, wow, 8 times 5,000 per dead bank robber. Woohoo, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Yeah.
So they went running off to the rumor mill, and the rumors just shot through town. So meanwhile, Sheriff Bradford, he was the big burly man you're talking about who had quite a reputation. He was 6'4", and back then, 6'4" is even taller. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And he had a reputation for just being able to instill justice. He was considered the last of the frontier lawsmen. I still am trying to find which case they talked about. Apparently he showed up while a riot was going on once, and just his mere presence, he just exuded authority, and people just calmed down. Like, he had a presence. He was a beloved figure around town and well known for just, hey, he's the law incarnate. So he went to one end and the town had just, one of the bank tellers had just bought for the town, for the law enforcement, these riot guns specifically for the case of bank robbery. It was just, people were doing all sorts of things to avoid bank robberies. What can we do in our little town and not fall prey? So Sheriff Bradford had one of those on him, and in a way that might have contributed to his demise, because when the big shootout happened, he didn't just start shooting. Okay, I want to back up a little bit here. So as I mentioned, the rumor mill just went crazy. The local hardware store started handing out guns and ammo to anyone, including teenage boys. And I have a wonderful quote from this teenager. I love his name. His name is Goober Keys.
Goober Keys. I love it.
And I read a bunch of articles about him. He was in the newspapers a lot because he was like the star football player of Cisco when he went on to. So, but yes, Goober Keys. I was really like, did I dream that name? I was looking it up. Nope, that was his name. But he talks about it. There's an interview with him going, yeah, me and 3 of my buddies walked in, and they handed Collins Hardware, handed us guns and said, go catch yourself, go kill yourself, a bank robber. So here's this bank robbery is happening, and people are either, half the town is running away from it, and the other half is running toward it going, yeah.
Payday.
Yep, exactly.
But that was a real problem for the sheriff and his deputy, because they're standing there with their guns and they're waiting, and they've been trained, and they're waiting for a clear shot, and they're waiting for someone who is actually a criminal to shoot at, things like that.
Right.
Meanwhile, the citizens are very excited and full of so much adrenaline, and shots are going everywhere. I have some quotes from people who said they were afraid to they wanted to escape from the bank, but they were afraid to leave the bank because so many shots were being fired. They thought they were going to get clipped.
Wow.
And in fact, a lot of people did it. In the new book, I do have a little list of casualties. During the 15-minute shootout, there were 12 people shot in total.
Wow.
The 2 of them ended up dying. One was in a coma, and the other 9 were all shot but expected to recover. And it was pretty crazy.
Oh man.
So. Yeah, but the sad thing is, another thing, that the big burly sheriff, police chief, when he was standing at the end of the alley and he was waiting for his shot, he saw the Santa Claus guy come out, and he tried with his new gun, and it jammed. So maybe if he hadn't had his new gun, he could have shot Santa, and that would have been that. Another guy ran right. It was crazy. I know it defeated from, here's your new riot gun that's going to help, and oh boy, it doesn't work. And that was a problem. A lot of people, too, had gotten guns that were a little too fancy, that they didn't know quite how, it was the latest model. I'm not a gun person, you could probably tell, but, they were shooting each other. They were shooting the building. They were, oh my goodness, it was crazy.
Wow.
So then this mysterious figure, this blonde lady, ends up shooting the police chief, or so he reports.
He says.
Yes.
Yes, he says that. Now, okay, so poor Sheriff Bedford, who's standing there waiting to take, to take out a bandit, and he gets shot after his gun jams. He gets shot 5 times in the torso.
Wow.
And just collapses.
Ouch.
Yes, and but on his deathbed, he insists, I wasn't shot by no man. It was a blonde-headed woman. I looked her right in the eyes as she did it.
Oh, my.
And so a lot of controversy comes right there.
So
because when you read... Oh, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, so when you read that other book I referenced, A.C. Green's, and others that are all based off of his, he says that this was some sort of fever dream on the part of the sheriff, of the police chief. And people did wonder at the time. We didn't, there were the only women in the bank. There were a couple little girls, and then there was a gal, a brunette. I have her picture. I thought originally maybe he had seen Santa's white beard and mistook that for blonde hair somehow. But this guy has a lot of experience behind him. It was no greenhorn. So when he says that, it still just bothered me. So yeah, I did a lot more research on that, and I do think there was, long story short, I do think there was a blonde-headed woman involved.
Sure. And so you dig deeper into that into the new book, Santa Claus Bank Robbery.
Yes, I
Okay.
do. I dig into that a lot more.
Right.
So this insane shootout's going on, but these robbers don't throw their guns down, put their hands up, because obviously at $5,000, somebody's going to shoot them.
Right.
They do manage to get out of there and escape.
They do. So they managed to go down the main drag in their little, 1927 car. They had stolen a pretty fancy car, actually. But it had one thing I like about this car. They describe it. It had window curtains with little crystal glass flower vases on them. I'm thinking, wow, that's quite a foo-foo little fancy car they were in.
Yeah, it is.
So they managed to escape. They tried to shove a bunch of people into the getaway car, but they only managed to take the 2 little girls in there, because there were 2 little girls who were trying to withdraw money to buy some Christmas gifts. And so they unfortunately got caught up in it and were used as human shields by the robbers as they stepped out of the bank. So everyone else who worked at the bank at the time, they all made it out fine, but the 2 little girls ended up in the car. So the car is going down the road, and the local postmaster actually managed to shoot out one of the tires. he was known as being a really crack shot. He should have been the main person with a gun, but he got there just in time. Yeah, unfortunately, by the time he showed up, and he just had his service revolver. So, again, it was a gun he actually knew how to use. So he showed up, rather than, here's a new gun. Oh, how do we even use this thing? But he showed up just as the car was heading down the street, and he managed to shoot out a tire. So that caused problems. So they're skidding all over. They're not making a very good time. Meanwhile, coming into town, because it's December 23rd, and people are coming in from a little town to a nearby town to Cisco to do some Christmas shopping. We have a little family, and they have their 14-year-old son, Woodrow Wilson Harris, which I love that name, and he is excited to just be able to drive the car. He's like, hey, I'm 14, I'm driving the car, this is exciting. Well, suddenly the Santa car is coming towards him, and they pull him over, they're waving guns. At first, with someone dressed like Santa, they're thinking this is some sort of holiday prank. But it turns out that they are trying to carjack, and they want Woody's family car. So the family members get out, and it's with him and his parents, his grandma. They manage to get out of the way and, run into some nearby house, and so they're safe. But Woody's still there, and they're kind of the whole crew is like trying to get the car from him. But he cleverly, this just gets me, he keeps the car keys and leaves. And so they have transferred everything over while they're transferring all this stuff over to the new car, the loot and everything. And then they're like, okay, great, let's get going. They get in and they realize we can't start this thing. Where'd that kid go? Well, where he went was the posse is getting closer. Now the posse sees Woody, the kid, and they start shooting at him. So he has to take shelter in a nearby shed. Thank goodness he didn't get shot and killed. And so they realize, well, now we have to take the little girls and the loot and go back into the other car. And so they get back into the original beat-up car and they start driving off. And they have forgotten a very important thing: the loot.
Oh, good Lord. It just gets worse.
Doesn't it? I know.
Yes.
It just gets worse.
It almost sounds like a Three Stooges episode.
Right.
The way it plays out.
It plays out like a dark comedy.
It really does. This book, I have had so many people tell me should be a Hollywood movie. I think the Coen brothers or Tarantino could really, or someone along those lines could really
I'd love
do it. I think
to see Tarantino get his hands on this.
Oh, yeah. He would not have to embellish much. I mean, this is just a crazy, crazy tale.
Tui Snider is our guest right now inside the creaking doors. This is her return visit to us and talking about the follow-up to her 2015 book, The Lynching of the Santa Claus Bank Robber. Just this year, she released Santa Claus Bank Robbery, a true crime saga in Texas, a follow-up to the 2015 book. Now, Tui, I know last time we had you in 4 years ago and spoke about this, we were talking about how this is meant to be a movie, but they actually made like a bluegrass musical out of this, didn't they?
They did. And unfortunately, the guy who made this bluegrass musical, he retired before I found out about this whole crazy tale. So I've never gotten to see it, but I do have a link in my book where if you want to hear the musical from it, you can. There's a guy, Banjo Billy is his name, and he is, he's a really neat guy. He was so nice to me when he found out I was writing the original book and told me, hey, sure, gave me what information he had. Now, he's one of the people who had always heard that the mysterious blonde woman was a myth, because that's what's been perpetuated, really, especially since the 70s. And so in his musical, they have this blonde woman, but she is a character. She's like a ghost kind of figure. But you can go and you can listen to the music. If you go to YouTube, you can hear one of the songs. I made like a little 1 minute book trailer, if anyone wants to hear some of the songs from it. But yeah, it is one of those things that there is a bluegrass musical.
So without giving away everything in the book here, Tui, because we're getting pretty in depth on it, these guys do get caught. They do eventually go to jail, and there's kind of a media frenzy around this. And you even mention how amazing horror writer H.P. Lovecraft is following the story.
Yeah, wasn't that neat?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was actually pen pals with Robert Howard, the guy who wrote Conan the Barbarian. So they had they exchanged like a letter between each other about how, hey, we heard there was a big, okay, so after the Santa Claus guys had their getaway, they actually made it into the woods. You know, they abandoned their car, they left the little girls, they made it into the woods, and there was a huge manhunt for the Santa Claus bank robbers. And so this was really, I mean, it was like the biggest manhunt to date in Texas. And there was a lot of media around that. And so, yeah, Robert Howard wrote his friend H.P. Lovecraft and said, yeah, I wanted to take part in this, but I was just too hungover that day, essentially. Although he says it much better, much more elegantly the way he writes it. But, yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
That's great.
So they escape, but then eventually justice is served to kind of tie it in without saying too much.
Yeah, and all the guys involved anyway.
Sure, exactly.
Served to them.
Now, Tui, do you have a theory on why AC Green kind of changes the names on some of these central characters where he doesn't with others, and why he might be leaving out this mysterious blonde?
I have only a little bit. One thing I found very interesting, I do have both the first edition of his book and then a more later release. And he actually, A.C. Green, when he first wrote about it, he was a newspaper reporter. So he was actually just doing I think in 1970, when was it? In 1957, he was doing an article about this. And he hadn't grown up with the tale. And so he came to Cisco, did some research, and somehow he managed befriending one of the bandits. There's one bandit who survives. Of those four, three meet their demise one way or the other. Mm-hmm. But one of them was later released, and they allowed him to change his name, and he apparently became a law-abiding citizen. I've not been able to figure out exactly who he was. I mean, not that I haven't tried, but he did live near the area. He actually became, it seems as though, I don't know, this is what gets me. So A.C. Green and him became buddies, and A.C. Green actually dedicates his book to this guy, to this bandit. So I think that maybe he told him, don't incriminate this woman for some reason in, this family. Just maybe keep her out of it. That's my theory, but really that is total theory. I have nothing to say that. It is clear to me, though, that anything surrounding this one particular woman and her family, he uses pseudonyms for, and he obscures connections to the bandits that are really make me wonder why. I think that at the very least she was an accessory to the bank robbery, and I don't know why he goes to such lengths to obscure this. I think it's fascinating, and I'm jealous that he was able to befriend one of the bandits. Because what a great source material. I mean, there's so many questions I would ask. Unfortunately, they have both passed on, so I can't ask either of them what was the deal.
Now, Tui, in your research, and obviously here we are in 2019, so many, many years removed from the original incident and even the rewriting in the 50s and the research there, but with your research and trying to uncover real names and get past these pseudonyms that have been created, have you ran into anyone who kind of looked at you and said, hey, just leave this alone, you don't need to be going there?
Not as far as the pseudonyms, but I have as far as the lynching. The town, there was a lynching in it.
Right.
And, of course, no one wants, I'm not saying, hey, let's put up a little plaque saying, here's the lynching capital of West Texas or anything like that.
Right.
I don't think it is an event to be celebrated in any manner in that regard, but it is your history. And so when I approached some historians, they were just clip me off and not want to talk about the lynching aspect in certain aspects. Thank goodness I did make friends with the current sheriff of Eastland, Wayne Bradford, because he is fascinated by the crime. I mean, he's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
And he really was very helpful because there is a battle when the guy who dressed as Santa, actually escapes from jail at one point. I was having a hard time piecing together the narrative there. And I was really trying to, I didn't want to just have a paragraph saying, and then he just escaped. I wanted to kind of know how it happened. Why were they so lax that they didn't have his cell unlocked, whatever. So you can make it, and I do, at the end of the book, I have a little, kind of a little chapter where if you're find yourself in Texas, you could actually visit some of the places that are involved.
Okay.
If you make a little, and you guys, I think you should come down and we should do a paranormal investigation in the Eastland County Jail.
Love it.
And if you plan in advance, the sheriff will give you a little tour of the jail, and he walks through the battle, and he's such a good storyteller. At one point, he goes, okay, so he's telling me how he's walking me through the whole jail and reenacting it as he does, like you when you're little kids, you're reenacting it, and it's like ugh, and then he put him here, ugh, and he goes, and then we went to the stairs, and we go down, and then he points his finger up like an imaginary gun, and he goes bang, and I follow I follow the trajectory of his hand, and I look up, and there's a hole in the ceiling.
Oh, how cool.
And that was it. And then I had chills, and I'm like, this guy should be writing a book. He's a good storyteller. And, I thought it was great because I was really hitting dead ends with getting good information on that.
Yeah.
And this is such a great book. The Santa Claus bank robbery. I sat down and read it in 2 days when you sent the copy up.
It's so entertaining. It holds you.
It is, yet it's true crime.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's Christmas mixed in.
That's right. So it's a perfect trifecta.
Heartwarming. I had a book reviewer telling me that. She goes, I like Christmas stuff, but it just gets too syrupy after a little while, and this was just a nice counterpoint to all the syrup. I'm like, well, thank you.
Oh, fantastic. So again, the new book just released this year, Santa Claus Bank Robbery, a true crime saga in Texas. And the author is Tui Snider. You can find all of Tui's information at tuisnider.com. Now that's TUI SNIDER, TuiSnider.com, or on Amazon as well as where you can find all of her books. Now, Tui, again, since the last time we spoke in 2015, you've released a handful of other books already, and a new one coming out this spring that I'm very fascinated in, that I can't wait to read more about, is The Great Texas Airship Mystery of 1897. You're going to delve into the whole realm of UFOs now.
Yes. And, okay, once, you know how I said earlier, I used to write fiction, but then I moved to Texas. This is another example. And I have to admit, when I first heard about this, I thought it was kind of the stupidest thing I had ever heard. And now, fast forward 8 years, and I am, obsessively researching it all the time because this is so weird. This is predating Roswell, right? By 50 years. We're talking 1897.
Right.
There was a 6-week period here in Texas where there were hundreds, not just one, but hundreds of airship sightings. And this is in a time when there were the biggest thing you should see flying overhead would have been a buzzard. You're not going to be seeing anything fly. So I have just been obsessively researching this, and there's some really amazing, there is even about 15 minutes away from where I live, this is what started it all for me, there was a reported airship crash, and there is a state historical marker there because the spaceship crashed. They found a tiny charred body that was quote-unquote not of this world, and they buried it there. And I'm like, this predates, here's an alien spacecraft crash with a body that, predates Roswell by 50 years.
Wow.
So it's become a little bit of when I'm not obsessing over Santa, I'm obsessing over these UFOs.
Little green man.
Yeah. And then
yes, the little green man.
And then in September, I know that's a bit of a ways away yet, but the International UFO Congress in Phoenix, Arizona, is that you're going to be speaking there, I'm assuming, on this topic then.
Well, I actually just spoke there at the one that they just had.
All right.
Yeah.
Then I misread the poster online then. I apologize for that. So it was just this past September.
Worries.
So how did that go over for you then?
Oh my gosh, that went over so well, and it was neat. I mean, the input, the reaction I got, and that was quite, I was preaching to the choir. I didn't have to.
Sure, right. You didn't have to convince them anything.
Yeah, that was an interesting. Usually it could be a little bit like, what? Texans like ghost stories. Texans like ghost stories. That's a given because ghost stories are just like fancy history or something, and they all know about they all seem to know their genealogy. But when you introduce them UFOs, they're a little like, what? You start getting the side eye, and you start getting the bless your heart, and I'm like, oh boy,
Pat you on the head and send you on your way, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's not. Yes, here I go.
Yeah. So again, she is author, speaker, and photographer, and she's got some amazing books out there that you can find online at Amazon or go to tuisnider.com. Tui, it's been fantastic to have you back inside the creaking door with us, and again, as our holiday edition of the show. Thank you so much for taking the time. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, you guys. Thanks for having me on again, and Merry Christmas.
All right,
Merry
there we
Christmas.
go. Tui Snider, check her out, TuiSnider.com. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more on the way from Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by SlackJawPunks.com.
Do you love your horror films, comic books, and TV shows served up with a side of what the then we have the place for you.
Slackjaw Punks!
Yeah, SlackJawPunks.com. We dare you to check them out. A podcast that focuses on all the new horror films, comic books, and TV shows, and interviews with the authors and directors, but covered only the way the guys from
Slackjaw Punks
can do it. Plus, you can enjoy written commentary on all of the new stuff, too, from a whole slew of staff writers. So stop wasting time and check it out.
Slackjaw Punks!
SlackJawPunks.com. Serving it up with a side of what the
Welcome back inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. Tim Ellis and Brad Blair with you as we are approaching our closing segment of our holiday show, our anniversary show. And once again, we want to thank author and researcher and just all-around bundle of energy, Tui Snider.
I love her energy.
Yeah,
I love what she
contagious.
brings on the show. Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. She is just so bubbly, and the personality that's there.
Yep, absolutely. And we have not had a chance to bring her in for Michigan Paranormal Convention yet, but you never know.
Yeah, I think
know.
I would love to see her on stage. I
Yeah.
think she would be uncageable.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. But again, thank you to Tui for taking time to come on inside Creaking Door. You can find out all her information at TuiSnider.com. And again, that's spelled TuiSnider. Check it out. You'll love her great writing. The personality you hear on the interview comes across on the page as well.
It does. It
Yeah.
really translates well into her writing.
You bet. All right, it is time now for our closing segment where we do mailbag, where we invite you, our listeners, to share any questions or comments or anything with us that you may want to. And you can always find us at, of course, our main website, which is Creaking Door, paranormalradio.com. Or find us on Facebook or Twitter. Send us messages that way. And then we always choose some of our favorites for our shows. And this one, Brad, first of all, it's not a question. It's more of a sharing thing with us. But I thought it would fit in perfectly as you and your family are getting ready to head over to England for a visit between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah, heading across the pond and going to go hang out with a couple friends and see the sights, ride the ride, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That'll be a good time.
Just getting away and getting away from the
American version of Christmas.
I don't want to say getting away from the family, but getting away from, you know, Christmas can be a bit hectic.
Gotcha.
Let's
Yes.
leave it at that.
Yep, I gotcha. I'm following you now. And you know, maybe you'll get to experience some of that old Dickens Christmas.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm kind of hoping to get to see Dickens' house.
That would be cool.
His writing office.
You bet.
So we don't have a lot of set plans and kind of going to just kick it by ear while we're over there. So one thing we're going to check out Stonehenge. I've been to England before.
Nice. Yep.
We've never been there. We did make plans for a set tour to go there, and I hear such extremes on it. Some people just love it and say it's a marvel, and others say don't waste your time.
Sure.
It's a long ride. So, but being in the paranormal field, you
got to.
You have to.
Yeah.
You
Even if
can't-
you're disappointed.
can't go to England multiple times and say you've never been to Stonehenge. So that's
Absolutely.
going to be part of the trip. And yeah, just looking forward to getting on the road and kind of deflating for a little while here at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So that should be a great time for you and the family to take that in. And that's why I thought our question was very fitting. Actually, the first time we've ever received one we've gotten them from the U.S. and Canada, but we've never received one.
Several from
in Australia.
Australia.
Yes, you're right. But first time from England. So thank you to Danton, Danton. Love that name. From Rye, the town of Rye, which he says is in the Rother district in East Sussex, England. Sounds
You
very
practiced
official.
that, didn't you?
I had to. Here we go. Here's what Danton says. He says, "Good day, Tim and Brad. A big hello from across the globe from England. England, the small town of Rye in the Rother district in East Sussex, England. Just in case you decide to look it up. Smiley face. He says, I found your show about a year ago while looking for podcasts on the paranormal, and I have been a fan since I found it. Bloody good stories and the like. Keep up the wonderful work. I'm emailing you today, not for a question to be answered, but rather to share and ask if either of you have heard of the Christmas Ghost Story series that aired and still airs here in England. It's on TV. It's called A Ghost Story for Christmas, and then each story is based on short stories. The show runs anywhere from a half an hour to an hour long. It's an old series that started back in the 70s and then more recently back with new ones. He says, I love the program and, of course, much prefer the 70s filming of the shows compared to the new ones, but the new ones will keep me sufficed in a pinch, he says. By the way, I'm sure they are available on the web or through streaming and wanted to share this with you. Perhaps Father Christmas can bring them to you this year. Love the shows, fellas, and please keep them coming. A big festive holiday salute from England. So, Danton, wonderful to hear from you. So I did a little research, and I actually went out to see if I could find...
I've never heard of this.
Me either, but it's out there. And I found some of the stories on the actual videos on YouTube. And just like anything you'd expect from the 70s, they have that great creepy footage to it.
See, I miss the old 70s.
Yes.
Your old In Search Of.
Yep.
And yeah, that's
kind of reminds you of that.
Nostalgic.
Very nostalgic. So just real quick here, here's a Ghost Story for Christmas is a strand of annual British short television films, originally broadcast on BBC One between 71 and 78, then revived in 2005 on BBC Four. With one exception, the original installments were directed by someone else, blah, blah, blah. Each installment is a separate adaptation of a short story, ranges between 30 minutes and 50 minutes, as Danton had said, and features well-known British actors, so on and so forth. And so it just goes on to say, I mean, it just talks about what it is, but it's
I would love to see something like that in the States.
Yeah, it would be very cool. But basically what they said was this was to pay homage to the old days of, as we've shared before on the show, that's what they used to be back before television and
radio
and Christmas music. And
right.
Christmas was a time of families would get together around the candles and share ghost stories.
Right. That's where a Christmas Carol, Dickens' classic on Scrooge, originated from.
Yep.
That's why you've got ghosts in there. And yeah, it's something that I guess we've lost throughout the years.
Yeah.
And with the advent of modern technology and even through the past century with the oncoming of a radio in every house, I think people started to adapt away from the old family storytelling traditions.
Exactly. So I love the fact that over there in England, they had this TV series that was dedicated in homage to that.
That sounds fun.
Very cool. So I'm going to do a little more digging on this to see if I can find like some streaming service or something that actually has these.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
It's kind of a movement again, I think, bringing paranormal and ghost stories back into Christmas.
So.
I see more and more of it online. And we've seen a resurgence in Krampus popularity.
Yes, we have. Especially last year, it came out with a couple bad movies. I still haven't watched any of the movies that came out for it.
The one, it's just called Krampus. It was a little bit bigger budget, mainstream, and I just saw it on, it might have been FX the other night.
Okay.
I sat down and watched it, and it's campy.
That's what you expect,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure.
a little dumb, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun for me to watch, being
Sure.
a horror fan and a paranormal fan, and just to see it tie in a little bit with the holiday season, so to speak.
Right.
So, yeah, it's worth a watch.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, I mean, you're right. We've seen in the pop culture the kind of bringing back Krampus and people talking about it now. Now you can get ugly Christmas sweaters with Krampus on it. And where was that 10 years ago?
You can get ugly Christmas sweaters with anything on it
Yes, you
nowadays.
can.
The white cat meme. I love that one. The white cat meme and the screaming lady.
I love it.
I don't know if there's a set name. I think they call the cat Smudge.
Smudge?
If I read that correctly. I believe his name is Smudge, the actual cat. But
I crack up at the people who are getting upset about it.
Oh, because it's the meme that won't die.
It won't. It is so funny. I mean, I don't care what wording you put with it. Every time I read a new meme, I crack up.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's great. So, yeah. So is it going to last through 2020?
We'll find out.
We'll explore that next year when we have our 6th anniversary show. show. So
Yeah, exactly.
Already a lot lining up for 2020, though. Man, it's hard to believe it's the end of 2019, the end of the decade already. But man, we've got stuff that we're working on. A couple things we can't talk about yet, but we are signed to be in Deadwood, South Dakota.
Yes.
For open range events, May 28th through 31st. Going to do some ghost hunting in the ghost town.
Looking forward to that.
That's going to be great. You can go to openrangeevents.com to get more info on that. Of course, the 11th Annual Michigan Paranormal Convention coming up right here in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, August 27th to 29th. A lot of the lineups out there right now. There's still a few things getting worked in and added, but you can check out miparacon.com. Get all your updates on that.
You bet.
And of course, we're in the process of a second book.
Book number 2.
Not really a follow-up to Supernatural Haunts,
right?
Which, if you haven't bought yet,
you should.
Supernaturalhaunts.com, and you can also get that Kindle version off of Amazon on that. That was our debut book, so to speak, that came out this past year.
Which we're very proud of and had a blast.
Yeah, it was great fun. And now we're into to this second book that we can't really talk about that yet either, but as long as all goes well, that should be released early next summer in 2020.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that, and we'll obviously share more as we can. But good stuff. We're looking forward to 2020. We want to thank all of our listeners out there who have followed us along for the last 5 years. Hard to believe it was 2014 when we launched our first show, and here we are wrapping up 2019. So on behalf of everyone here at Creaking Door Paranormal Radio,
we're looking out the window.
It's like it was meant to be.
It's like we're in a snow globe right now. There's light, fluffy snow dropping. It's not too cold out.
Yeah.
I feel like I need a mug of nog.
A nog or a hot cocoa with a candy cane.
Get my good dickie on under my V-neck sweater.
You mean your shirt or something? What do you mean?
You know, the dickie that you put under the sweater.
Gotcha. That dickie.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. You keep your dickie to yourself. But again, everyone have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And thank you for being with us in 2019 and follow along in 2020. On behalf of my co-host, Brad Blair, and all of our engineers who have helped us through the years, my name is Tim Ellis. Thanks for tuning in. This is Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by SlackJobHunts.com.
The Creaking Door.